Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Amazement Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile for August 2024. The Amazement deck was a pretty interesting take on a trap-focused deck using our few Amazement main deck monsters we have, and the many different theme park attractions in the form of the trap cards in the deck to give us assistance with setting up our Amazement Administrator, Arlecchino, and those different traps having different effects depending on when we use them on the field for either, beneficial effects for us or negative ones for our opponent. Happy with the results of the updates. I haven't updated it since we got the new support from Cyberstorm Access, but with the acquired support, I figured an update was due. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the Amazement monsters, we're running 2 copies of Amazement Administrator, Arlecchino. Once per turn, you can banish any number of attraction traps from your graveyard, then target that many cards your opponent controls and destroy them. You can use each of the following effects of Amazement Administrator, Arlecchino, once per turn. If a trap card is activated, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. If your opponent normal or special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can target one of those face-up cards they control, equip one attraction trap from your deck to that target. So this is the setup that I mentioned before with the attraction traps that we run in the deck, but also just having an easy special summon of our boss monster to then can destroy cards on the field with how many of the different Amazement attraction traps that we banish from the graveyard as well. I feel you only need 2 though. The big focus are still the actual traps themselves, and we have some other surge power in the deck for being able to add Administrator Arlecchino to our hand, including cards like the Amazing Time tickets. For the other Amazement monsters, 2 copies of this was the newest monster from back during when Cyberstorm Access came out, and that is Amazement Abomination, Arlecchino. If you control an Amazement monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then you can add 1 Amazement Family Faces from your deck or graveyard to your hand, with this card being more of that setup for your cards. You have added action for your cards to be added to your hand using this card, but also giving you more of that setup with this card for more of that playstyle. During your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can target 1 other effect monster on the field with more than 0 attack. Shuffle this card into the deck, and then if you do, special summon 1 Amazement Administrator Arlecchino from your deck, then change the attack of the targeted monster to 0. So you have more of the setup to grab your bigger boss monster using the Arlecchino in the deck for your search and setup using those cards. With our other lower level Amazement monsters are the Amazement Attendant Comica, which we're running 3 copies of as well. When it's normal summon, you can set 1 attraction trap directly from your deck. Quick effect, you can target 1 of your attraction traps equipped to a monster, equipped to 1 Amazement monster you control, or 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. You can use this effect of Comica once per turn, but the switch of the different rides, depending on what they're equipped onto, if it's you have the additional effect. If it's your opponent, there's a different effect. So being able to switch and set up those cards with Comica definitely makes it another 3 of to run, just so you have that search and setup ready to go. With the last of our Amazement monsters being the 1 copy of Amazement Ambassador Bufo. When normal summon, you can target 1 attraction trap in your graveyard, and 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, equip that trap to your opponent's monster. And quick effect, you can target 1 of your attraction traps equipped to a monster, equip it to 1 Amazement monster you control, or 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. So this is just more of a graveyard setup monster, while your Comica handles the main deck cards, but still being able to switch around the cards on the field. And if we have one that we've already used in the graveyard that we want to reattach again onto one of our opponent's cards. And then for the rest of the main deck monsters, I have 3 copies of Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill. If you wanted to run Ash Blossom in this spot, you can do that as well. I've just been testing out this hand trap as another option for stopping opponent's monster effects. And also you can drop 1 of the spots here if you wish to run the additional option of the Amazement Family Faces for the Amazement Abomination Arlecchino. And for the spells, we run 3 copies of Amazing Time Ticket. You pay 800 life points, apply this effect depending on whose turn it is. If it's your turn, you can add 1 Amazement card from your deck to your hand, searching out whatever you need for any of your plays. Or during your opponent's turn, you can set 1 attraction trap directly from your deck, and it can be activated this turn, giving you more setup for some of the better Amaze attraction traps that we run in the deck, and being able to make use of them on our opponent's turn as well. You can only activate 1 Amazing Time Ticket per turn, but it's this search search and field setup that really does help for, just setting up a good amount of what the deck is meant to do, activating and equipping the different traps we have in the deck, and then if we already have those traps set, giving us some of our bigger monsters to then be able to summon out when we use those traps. And also the 3 copies of Amazement Precious Park. During your main phase, you can activate 1 attraction trap. The turn was set. During the end phase, you can send 1 attraction trap you control to a monster zone to the graveyard. You basically equip to a monster, not in the monster zone. And then with this card, target 1 of your attraction traps with a different name that is banished or in your graveyard. Set that card. You can only use this effect of Precious Park once per turn, but this is the premise of the entire theme park, being able to swap out the different cards we need for different theme park rides for us to use with our Yugioh for that setup. And then also for the last of the Amazement spells, 1 Amazement Special Show. When your opponent activates a card or effect that targets an Amazement monster you control, target 1 of those Amazement monsters you control, return it to the hand, then you can special summon 1 Amazement monster from your hand. So then we have additional search and setup. You can swap back and forth between cards like our Yugioh and then the Abomination Yugioh, and just a way to avoid some of your opponent's other cards, because then you can just target and remove the card on the field that your opponent was trying to target with that card. With the last of the spells being 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance, just because we don't really, use the extra deck too much aside from some more generic summons in this deck. So having more of a way to draw into more traps for us to use is why I like running Pot of Extravagance, just for the cost of banishing cards from our extra deck. And then moving on now to the traps, running 3 copies of Amaze Attraction Horror House. With this card, you target 1 Amazement monster you control or one face-up monster your opponent controls. Equip this card to it. You can activate the following effects based on which player controls the equipped monster. If it's you target an effect monster your opponent controls, negates effects to the end of this turn. If it's your opponent, you change the equipped monster to face-down defense position. So more of a way to just, interrupt your opponent's plays, or, even negate a monster effect on the field, kind of counting as an additional lineup for effect failure in the deck in the form of a trap card. We're also running 3 copies of Amaze Attraction Cyclo Coaster. You target 1 Amazement monster you control, or one face-up monster your opponent controls, equip this card to it, and they share these effects with the you monster being able to target spell trap your opponent controls, send both it and this card to the graveyard. So spell and trap, way to clear off the field. And with your opponent, you add 1 Amazement monster from your deck to your hand, and if you do, send this card to the graveyard. Search power, just like the Amazement time ticket. You can only use each effect of Cycle Coaster once per turn, but another 3 of, because once again, spell and trap disruption, it sends the card as well, so it gets around destruction plays, and then just being able to have a search option if this card's on your opponent's monster. I also run the 3 copies of Amaze Attraction Thrill Train. You target an Amazement monster or your opponent's monster, and if it's your monster equipped to, you change the equipped monster's battle position. Then your opponent chooses 1 attraction trap in your graveyard. You set to your field, giving you more setup, and having them pick may not be the best choice, but still, they would, give you some of the better options, like the Horror House or the Cyclo Coaster. And if it's your opponent's, you banish the equipped monster until the end phase. Just a way to kind of, have them ride the thrill train off the field thanks to this card. For some of the lower numbers for the Amaze Attraction traps, 2 copies of Amaze Attraction Majestic Merry-Go-Round. You target 1 Amazement monster, and then if it's your monster equipped, the equipped monster gains 500 attack. If it be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can send this card to the graveyard instead. Or if you're its opponent's monster, the equipped monster loses 500 attack for each of your attraction traps equipped to a monster. More ways to get over some of the bigger monsters your opponent may have using this card. And also the 1-ofs being the 1 copy of Viking Vortex, the 1 Rapid Racing, and the 1 Amaze Attraction Wonder Wheel. Just a couple 1-ofs. They're searchable with other cards in the deck, but more situational cards to use in the deck depending on the effect we want to use, whether it be for Viking Vortex, Rapid Racing, or Wonder Wheel. And then some more of the generic traps we run in the deck. 2 copies of Evenly Match. I do like running these in the main deck, just if we do end up having to go second against our opponent. It's a better trap to open up for more disruption of our opponent's cards, with the last being 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Another card to rely on during our opponent's turn if they ended up going first against us. And then as for the extra deck cards, running the 1 copy of Baguska, the 1 number 60, the 1 Abyss Dweller, the 1 Tornado Dragon, For the rank 4 Xyz monsters, for the rank 7 monsters, 1 Big Eye, 1 Dark Arm Dragon of Annihilation, 1 number 76 Harmonized Grediel, and the 1 Gaia Dragon the Thunder Charger, with the last of the Xyz monsters being the 1 copy of Divine Arsenal Zeus to be able to overlay on top of these monsters. Once again, they're generic because a lot of times we're just going to be using these cards for Pot of Extravagance, with our link monsters being 1 Underclock Taker, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Dark the Dark Charmer Gloomy, 1 Sillow Hat Rabbit, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, and the 1 Borreload. I decided to run Borreload over cards like Apollosa. If you have access code, you can put it in this spot just because there's a chance that those cards like IP and Apollosa could also potentially be hit in the next ban list. But as for some of the go-to plays, a lot of what this deck is meant to do is just trap setup. So in your opening hands, if you open up a wide variety of, let's just say, traps, you can have them set on the field, and then you're just going off of what you can do to disrupt your opponent's plays depending on the trap that you activate on the field. If you have cards like your Amazing Time Ticket, you can set this card also, because when you activate it on your opponent's turn, you can either set the trap directly or you can activate on your own turn, giving you the activation to then add an Amazement monster from your deck to your hand. And then when you activate that additional trap targeting your opponent's monsters, you get the additional special summon of your Arlecchino. And then you have the send option with their own card effects to then have more of the banish option to use later on for Arlecchino's own destruction plays. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Very happy with the update. As I said, it's been a while since I've updated the Amazement deck, but I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.